Good morning. How are you doing today? Hope all is well in your part of the world. It's a little chilly where I am. I'm not liking it. Oh my goodness. All right. So, if this is your first time joining, welcome. My name is Patricia Hayes. I am an executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and a strategist, especially focusing on networking strategy. But this is Coffee Time Career Chat, and where we discuss all things that affect you in your growth professionally, with a special, emphasis on building professional relationships in a sustainable, authentic way that will support you throughout your career. And I'm glad to be here today. It has been a long weekend. It was a full weekend, but it was a long one. So I'm glad to be here with you all today, where we are continuing our march through the month of March, focusing on various mindset issues or concerns. I won't say issues, but concerns or challenges that we face in our growth professionally. And this week, let's see, last week we did, so you can go back and check the addressing your career or uh, mindset blocks, career business mindset blocks. So just go check that one out from last Monday. And then on Wednesdays, in case you haven't been following, on Wednesdays, we have been resharing our series on maximizing your networking relationships and planting those seeds in various ways. I like to do that during the month of March because, it's basically everyone really starts going for it when it comes to attending conferences and workshops and things like that. And you don't know what to do. You don't really know how to maximize it. And so I regularly share that one. I could talk about it all year long, but I definitely share that series in March. So check that one out as well. So today we are going to chat about stepping outside of your networking comfort zone. And I know I have tons of you out there that I've talked to recently and down through the years who have all kinds of thoughts about quote networking. And we will talk about those things and those fears, those challenges here today. But the one thing I want to help with first shifting your mindset about quote networking is to get the nasty happy hour mentality. Like put that aside. Anybody who knows me knows I like despise happy hours. I've had to go to them my entire career, but they are not my favorite thing, right? And people would think, oh, well, that's the thing you really want to go do. No, absolutely detest them. The only thing I hated worse was attending political fundraisers and political receptions, and that was like required for my job that I used to have. So I understand that there are certain events or certain venues or gatherings where that are designated as networking opportunities that are not your favorite. And there are ways to get around that. Okay. I've been there, I've done that. And we could talk about that. Even the things I used to love, like big galas and things like that. You ever got to a point I'm like, okay, I've been there, done that. Why do I need to go to this? And so that's a whole other conversation about evaluating what you're attending and doing it for the right reasons, and saying, well, my job requires it doesn't make it necessarily a right reason, right? It's about shifting your approach and your mindset approach to either the event or what's the real goal, right? Because if the goal can be attained a different way, then that's what you shift your attention to and advocate for. Okay. We're not even talking about that. I'm going to remember that because that's a good one for another time, about how to shift your perspective on events. That said, um, it is about assuming you have what it is that's on your plate right now today and what it is you need to do. What's the problem, right? Like, what's really the issue with attending or doing or being in the networking space? And my challenge to you is to first shift that from the nasty networking mentality to one of building a relationship, looking to create new relationships with new or different people. That should shift something in your head, right? Um, because that's a different mentality. Most people don't have a nasty, icky feeling when you're talking about building a relationship or creating one. And so I want you to first think in those terms, land that as your foundation for the approach. And then we can work through some of these other things that we're about to talk about, because there's always going to be an excuse that comes up. There's always going to be a block that comes up. This is not a preachy blame or why are you being that way? Because honestly, I have had those moments and I still have those moments. There are days when there is something, an event in particular, probably, that requires me to get outside my comfort zone, which is, working from home, not having to drive in traffic, all of that stuff. But recognizing I need to go meet some people, and not just go meet some people. I need to go meet these people, and then for X reason. Okay. So I need you to think about it in those terms when those excuses and blocks come up. It's like, what's the need and who? Think about that. What's the need that you're really trying to address and the who of it? Because when you put it in that frame of mind, again, we can talk a little bit more in depth and it can shift your perspective and put things in. And again, this is not just about doing something because my job requires it. I have to do this for work. That's not the right mentality as well. Because if you are in a career in your owning a business, like, yes, it is a necessary activity. It's a professional skill that has to be developed. We forget that. Engaging with others and doing so for professional reasons is an actual skill. It's something that requires practice. Okay. So remember that it's a skill that requires practice. And the only way you're going to do it is to get out there and do it. Okay. All right. So those are some ground level things right there. Now, here's the next thing. There are these list of excuses. I'm just going to go through them. They're like the top 4, but it's not going to be just about naming the excuse and like, oh, here's why you shouldn't have. But I want to frame it in what's the mindset issue, what's the fear behind it. And there could be others. It's not just one thing. There could be multiple reasons, but a lot of times these are the most common ones. When I'm talking to people who say, "Oh, I know I need to do more networking, but," right? What follows the but? That's always the thing. I generally like meeting people, but, right? So this is what's the but and what's the mindset behind the but. So here are the 4 very common challenges that have to be faced and that we can talk about these excuses. Okay. Easy peasy one. I just do not have enough time, right? We're all busy. There's lots going on and I don't have time to go show up to that event. I don't have time to go do that. It's going to take too much time getting there and coming back. And those are all legitimate concerns, right? When we have our schedule and we're trying to fulfill all these various roles and goals and things to do between meeting in person and meeting online, There's a lot going on. So I don't necessarily question the legitimacy of time being a factor. But here's the thing, time is a valuable resource as well. So when it comes to saying, well, I don't have enough time to go build these relationships, what is the real issue, right? Remember, we're shifting. We're not going to talk about, I don't have time to go do this quote networking event. But you've shifted and say, well, I don't have time to build these relationships. Well, that takes on a different tone, right? It takes on a different tone. It's like, well, gosh, what's really going on? I mean, you don't have time to go build relationships. So you have time to go fiddle through Facebook. You have time to go, rework your calendar for the 15th time that day, to take, another unexpected. So what are these, that's getting to some priorities, but let's really dig a little bit deeper. When you say you don't have time to build relationships and to go out there and to do that, a lot of times the real issue behind it is visibility, is being afraid of showing up, not just walking into the room, but being seen, right? If you have an issue being seen about, it's just like, oh my gosh, there's just too many people here, or I don't know what to do when I get there. And we'll talk about that one separately. But when it's an issue of visibility, this is a really common concern that so many people face, but they don't give it that name, right? And it takes practice and work to do it. So I will give you an example. I'm, professional lobbyist, registered government relations person for decades. So I was always having to show up in spaces that I wasn't quite comfortable with for whatever reason, doing the fundraisers, all of that stuff. Fast forward to being out on my own, however, and needing to go, start doing some things so that I can be seen more, but from a virtual space, not just always in person. I all of a sudden had this issue being on camera. And it's not because I don't know how to network or engage with people, but this issue of being seen behind a camera and how I showed up in that way just totally freaked me out. And so I had to call it for what it was, with some coaching, of course, and take some steps to overcome it. And that was, I did my own, this is where the 30-day consistency challenge came from. Originally, it was simply a challenge to myself to show up on camera for 30 days straight so that I could move past those visibility issues I had about being on camera, which was, oh, what if my hair's not combed? Then I have to put makeup on it. I have to get dressed. And so those first videos were so raw, y'all. They're hilarious to go back and look at now. But it was, if you knew the mentality and the real rationale behind it, I was accomplishing the goal of getting past that block I had about showing up on camera so that I could do it as a part of the work that I wanted to do, which is to share and reach out to those who needed support with their careers, who need support with building those relationships that would be sustainable over time. And being able to do so virtually on camera, even long before the last 3 years, the issues of the last 3 years came up, that was something I had to do. And so that's where that started. So this, these are things that can, and now I don't have any problem getting on camera. Now it's like, okay, I'm not getting on camera, I'm like, okay, I'm a little tired. But, just doing that instantaneously, spontaneously, that was not something I was trying to do, because I was like, oh no, I can't do that. And it was really about being afraid to show up, being afraid of how I would be perceived, being afraid about being seen in a different way, right? Same thing applies when it comes to just networking and connecting with others in whatever space. And when you're saying you don't have enough time, it's really probably a visibility issue. And saying you don't have the time to do it means you don't have to go show up. Okay. So I want you to think about that. You know how I feel about reflection time. Get you a journal. I have a whole collection. I got some new ones this weekend. But get you one so that you can write those things down. And not to shame yourself. This is not about, none of this is about shaming. This is about being curious, being compassionate with yourself so that you can grow. Okay. So that you can get to the next level of who and what you want to be, and deepening and strengthening this skill called networking is really important to that in so many other ways. Talking about networking as a leadership tool, that's a whole other one. Let me know if you're interested in that, because that is one that I have talked about before. I can send you to that coffee chat. All right. So that's the first one, not enough time. And what that requires is visibility and showing up. And that's really often the issue behind it. The second one is, well, I'm not going to know anyone, or I don't know anyone in order to engage in that. And this is about simply of having a fear of connecting with new people, connecting with people who don't look or sound like you, connecting with people in a new environment, right? Well, so I'm not going to know anyone, so there's really no point in me going. That's actually the whole point. The whole point is to go put yourself in a space with new people so that you can expand, so that you can grow your connections, grow your network. So when that's the issue about connecting with someone new, I hear this one probably a lot from folks who are introverts, who consider themselves introverts, because it really causes them some anxiety, especially if it's into some big, huge, showing up at a big gala or huge luncheon. I had this one time with someone that I've known for years, a professional person, owned her own business, and was inviting her to a big luncheon that I had hosted a table at for years. I'm like, let me bring some new people in, and reached out to her about it. And she kind of pushed back, and I was a little surprised. And then she circled back around. She was like, I'm sorry, let me explain to you why. And I had no idea that she had this whole anxiety about being in large crowds and being with people. And is that a little bit, a little bit off? Like, that's a legitimate thing. Like, that's a little bit separate, but it feeds into that, right? For someone else who is like scared of, meeting new people. And so being in big crowds may just really, or large groups and things like that, or settings where you're just walking in blind, can be off-putting and cause a great, bit of anxiety. So, those are things that you can talk about. You can get some help with, through some mindfulness techniques, through therapy, if that's something that's really affecting you. But when it comes to the quote basics of it, you don't know anyone, guess what? You don't have to set yourself up for failure by going straight into the next largest, thing that you've ever attended, right? There are a couple of ways to do it. Either number one, I'm a huge fan of doing one-on-one coffee chats. Long before we had to do it all virtually, I was doing it 2-3 times a week, or having lunch with someone 2-3 times a week, so that you're meeting with them one-on-one, right? Much smaller audience, much more intimate, allows you to get to know people better. And that also means you're being very targeted and specific with your time, because now you're approaching a particular person, or maybe you're meeting with a small group of people. Small book clubs are a good way to connect with people like that. Or if you're having to go, so this is the I have to do this because of work situation, then take a buddy along, right? Pull in someone that you do know, that you are comfortable with, and attend together. I did this forever for multiple reasons, not so much about being afraid to connect with new people, even though sometimes I just don't feel like it. But if I had to do it and I knew that the crowd was large enough and I needed some support, then I used to call an old friend of mine who liked going to this stuff. And she always kept a black dress and some heels ready. I'm like, hey, I got 2 tickets. Let's go to this. And then she would go, and I'm like, hey, let me know if you see this person or this person, whatever. And so she would help hold space for me. And that made it much more worth my time, right? So there's all kinds of ways to address it. Don't just think it's just one way with any of these techniques. There's never just one way. That's why if someone says, oh, I can't do that, I'm like, you're talking to the wrong person. There's always another way. Always. The question is really about your willingness to pursue it. Okay? So remember that it's not a question of whether or not there's more than one way to get something done. The question is your willingness. That's a good one, y'all. So it's much more about willingness versus your ability of showing up. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, it's not going to be worth it. Oh my goodness, this is the one. Now, again, legitimate on the surface. It's not going to be worth my time. So why waste my time, right? Tying back into that first one. It's not going to be worth it. There is absolutely value in considering this because, again, our time is valuable. It is one of the few things you can never get more of, right? And so you do want to be wise and strategic with it across the board with whatever you're doing. Okay. That said, if you are a professional with career goals, if you own a business with goals of growing, expanding, being more impactful, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to connect with some people in order to help facilitate achieving your goal. Remember what I started out with talking about the need and the who, okay? And so when you get to this one not being worth it, I'm not ever telling you to waste your time, right? But I am telling you not to use the worthiness of the time factor as an excuse not to engage. Okay, before you've done a full assessment. Okay, and oftentimes what this is linked to is being afraid of growth, even though that's the very thing you want, right? You want to grow, but you're actually afraid of growth. And be one step beyond that, what will happen if you what if it actually starts happening? What's going to happen when it actually starts coming to fruition? So it's that fear of success, right? Well, if I go do this, then I might actually meet some people that can help me achieve my goals. Yeah. And it's that next step after that freezes people. Like, well, what do I do with that? So don't let the fear of the step after keep you from taking the next step. Yeah. Okay. Don't let the fear of the second, third, and fourth step keep you from taking the first step. Again, I know this. I understand this feeling. And when you're being compassionate and curious with yourself, when you have some like very instant response to something like, oh, I'm not gonna wear this, whatever. So, well, what's really the issue? Okay. Now, if it's really a question of being worth, but that means you have done an assessment of checking out what the event is about, who's going to be in attendance, and making that assessment, cool. But if it's just a flippant, oh, that's not going to be worth my time without doing a deeper dive, then I encourage you to check out what's the rationale behind it. Is there some aspect of growth that may actually come from it that will cause you? So, for example, like if you get an invite to join a mastermind or to join a select group, right? Those are some trigger warning signs. And you say, oh, well, I don't know if that's going to be worth it. And especially if there are dollar signs attached to it, because it's real easy to say, well, oh, that's going to be too expensive. I can't do that. But is your growth, is it worth it to invest in yourself so that you can achieve that growth, achieve those goals that you're looking to do? Okay. That's a whole other conversation, but it feeds into number 4. So we're at number 4, which is saying, I'm not really good at this, so I shouldn't do it. Guess what? Didn't we already say that networking and relationship building is a skill? And the only way you get better is to practice. You have to practice. Take the baby steps, right? I'm not saying jump again. I'm not saying jump into something, that's what often puts people off is they jump into something full blown. They go from 0 to 100. And then when they flop at 100, they're like, oh my gosh, see, I told you it wouldn't work. So you set yourself up for failure, right? Knowing that instead of taking the baby steps, like making a call to someone, reaching out via email, setting up a coffee, setting up lunch, setting up dinner. Hey, can we meet at this happy hour? Or hey, I'm going to this reception. You see the various levels that can happen where you can practice engaging. You can practice having conversations about yourself. That's that visibility piece showing up again, right? And it's really gets to this one is the one that gets to confidence and worthiness, right? So that's that really looking inward and doing that reflection again about taking the actions that you need, getting the support that you need to build your confidence, as well as to know that you are absolutely worth the time and the investment to engage with others. Because you bring so much to the table, you have so much to offer other people. Don't deprive them of your greatness. Okay. So there we are. Man, the time flies when you're having fun. So those are those 4 things. Those are the 4 challenges or excuses that often come up. With the flip side of what's the mindset block that often comes up behind it, with a few comments on strategies to address. This really wasn't about the strategy. This was really about identifying what's the issue below the surface when these issues come up, when these comments come up for you. So I invite you to again take that time. You're worth taking the time to do the reflection a little bit every day, or if you have once a week, and check those things out. I still have to do it. There absolutely are moments where I'm like, I don't know about that, and I have to reel myself in. I'm like, okay, what's really going on? And have a little chit chat, and then use one of the many strategies that I've referenced or and talked about down through the years. Okay, so there we are. I hope that has been helpful. Let me know what you think. I know someone's been watching. I can't see who it is, but thank you for engaging and for following along. I absolutely look forward to getting any comments, questions you may have. You can slip them to me in the comments on whatever platform you're on, or just DM me. I'm always in the DM, so just DM me. Happy to answer any questions. Or if you're like, I really need to have a little bit longer chat about this, then let me know. You can go to the link in any of my bio on the platforms, and there should be one for you to be able to set up a consultation. It's 20 minutes. It's free. Happy to talk to you openly about whatever your need is. Okay. All right. That's it for today. I appreciate you. Looking forward to following up with you and hearing from you in the days ahead. Take care and talk soon. Bye-bye.